A special celebration turned sour. Olivia Morrison adjusted the lapel of her son's blazer as they stood outside the grand, glittering doors of the city's most prestigious restaurant, the Monarch Garden. For Olivia, this dinner was more than just a family outing. It was a celebration of the life she'd worked so hard to build, a life her children could feel proud of. Olivia was a self-made businesswoman, known for her resilience and determination. At just 35, she had built a small empire in the tech industry, providing jobs to hundreds and uplifting communities through her charitable initiatives. Tonight, she wanted to reward her children, 10-year-old Zachary and 6-year-old Tiana, with an unforgettable dining experience. They had spent the whole week excitedly discussing the fancy dinner and the new place where people dined with chandeliers overhead and menus with no prices. But as they stepped towards the host stand, Olivia sensed a shift in the air. "Good evening. Welcome to the Monarch Garden." A polished hostess greeted them with a tight-lipped smile that barely concealed her distaste. Olivia, always composed, smiled back, brushing aside the unease. "Reservation for Olivia Morrison." The hostess raised an eyebrow, looking down at her reservation list, and then back at Olivia and her children. "I'm not seeing any reservation under that name," she said, her voice a shade too cold. Olivia's stomach dropped, but she maintained her grace. "I booked it a week in advance and confirmed it yesterday. Could you please double-check?" The hostess sighed, visibly annoyed. "I'm sorry, but we're fully booked tonight. There's nothing available." Glancing past the hostess, Olivia noticed several empty tables, settings meticulously arranged, waiting for diners who hadn't arrived yet. Trying to ignore the growing tension, she asked calmly, "Are you certain?" "I see a few tables open." A waiter passing by shot a disdainful look at her children, his eyes lingering a little too long on their matching blazers and polished shoes. His muttered words weren't hard to catch. "People like that can't expect to just walk in." Zachary, old enough to understand, grabbed Olivia's hand, worry creasing his young face. "Mom, are we not allowed in?" Olivia's heart ached, but she mustered a reassuring smile. "It's all right, honey. It seems they made a mistake. We'll go somewhere else." She turned to the hostess, her voice steely. "Thank you for your time." As they walked out, she felt the prickling gazes of other diners, some pitying, others indifferent, and a few smug. She wanted to scream, to defend her family, to fight the injustice, but she didn't want her children to see her break. Not here, not now. They returned to the car in silence. Olivia's hands shook as she started the engine, and her reflection in the rearview mirror showed eyes burning with restrained anger. They had done nothing wrong, yet here they were, shunned, humiliated, and unwanted, simply because of who they were. "Mom," Zachary's voice was barely above a whisper, "did they treat us like that because we're black?" The question was like a knife to her heart. Olivia gripped the steering wheel, steadying herself. "Yes, sweetheart," she admitted, her voice filled with sadness but also resolve. "Sometimes people make judgments based on things that don't matter, like the color of our skin, but that's their problem, not ours." Tiana piped up. "But why, Mama? We didn't do anything wrong." Olivia took a deep breath, swallowing back tears. "I don't know, sweetie. But remember this. Just because someone else can't see our worth doesn't mean we don't have any. We're going to hold our heads high and show them who we are." The car ride home was quiet, the children processing what had happened, and Olivia's mind spinning with the injustice. This wasn't the first time she'd faced discrimination, but it felt different now. Her children had experienced it firsthand, and she couldn't ignore that. She couldn't shield them from everything, but she could show them that they didn't have to accept it. When they reached home, Olivia turned to her children with a newfound energy. "Who's up for a special dinner at home? We'll cook something fancy, and I'll even teach you Grandma's famous chocolate soufflé recipe." Zachary and Tiana's faces lit up, their earlier sadness replaced with excitement. Yes, they cheered, running inside, ready to start their new celebration. As the smell of fresh pasta sauce filled the kitchen and laughter echoed in the house, Olivia's mind was already hard at work. She couldn't let this go unanswered. She wanted more than just an apology. She wanted to see change. The Monarch Garden was going to learn a lesson, and she'd make sure it was one they'd never forget. The next morning, Olivia sat at her desk with a fresh cup of coffee, her laptop open. She researched the Monarch Garden, diving deep into its financials, reputation, and any potential weaknesses she could exploit. After hours of reading and analyzing, she discovered something that gave her pause. The restaurant, despite its aura of exclusivity and prestige, was struggling. Debt weighed down their finances, and management was scrambling to keep up appearances. The place was ripe for acquisition. Olivia's entrepreneurial instincts kicked in, and she felt a plan forming in her mind. What if she took over the restaurant, not just as an act of revenge, but as a step toward change? She could transform it into a welcoming space, one that embraced diversity and didn't judge people by superficial standards. And perhaps most importantly, she could turn it into a symbol of the very resilience and dignity they tried to deny her. She picked up the phone and dialed the number of her most trusted advisor, Anthony Ramos, a longtime friend and her company's head of acquisitions. "Anthony," she said, voice steady with purpose, "I need your help with something big." The following weeks were a whirlwind of activity. Olivia worked with her team to assess the financial viability of acquiring the Monarch Garden. The restaurant's debt was severe, and investors were nervous. It was only a matter of time before it became a liability for its owners, and Olivia was ready to strike when the time was right. Meanwhile, she reached out to contacts within the industry, discreetly gathering information about the restaurant's reputation and its history. She heard stories of discriminatory practices and hushed-up lawsuits. It was a toxic culture, rotten to the core, and she was more determined than ever to change it. One night, while she was working late, Zachary came into her office. "Mom, are you going to make sure they never treat anyone like they treated us?" Olivia looked at her son, feeling the surge of pride. "Yes, Zach. I'm going to make sure that people like us are always welcome, wherever we go." His face lit up. "You're like a superhero, Mom." She laughed, hugging him tight. "Not a superhero, baby, just someone who won't back down." As she watched him leave, Olivia's resolve hardened. This was about more than just one restaurant. It was about setting an example, showing her children and others that no one had the right to make them feel small. By the end of the month, Olivia had assembled everything she needed for a surprise takeover. And just as she was ready to act, news arrived that would make her mission even more powerful. Strategic moves and hidden allies. Olivia's days were a flurry of strategy meetings, late-night calls, and tireless research. Every move she made was deliberate. She wanted the Monarch Garden not only to right a personal wrong but to make a powerful statement. It was about showing her children, and everyone who looked like them, that they could overcome obstacles and build their own doors when others shut them out. A month after her visit, Olivia was ready. She had lined up the financing, secured a small team of trusted advisors, and gathered all the information she could on the restaurant's precarious financial state. She was prepared to make her first approach to the restaurant's owners, but she needed someone on the inside, someone who could give her direct access to the restaurant's operations and perhaps even uncover any secrets they were keeping. This was where Anthony came in. Anthony Ramos was more than her head of acquisitions. He was a sharp negotiator with a network of contacts that stretched across the city. He had a knack for getting information and making connections in places where others couldn't. "Anthony," Olivia began one morning in her office, "I need you to find someone who can go undercover for us at the Monarch Garden. I want someone who can get close to the management and understand what goes on behind those gilded doors. We need someone smart, trustworthy, and unafraid of a challenge." Anthony leaned back, considering her words. "I think I know just the person," he said. "He's a bit unconventional, but he's reliable. His name is Marcus Trent. He's a former journalist who's done undercover work before. He's been through tough assignments, so he won't flinch under pressure. I'll reach out and see if he's interested." 3 days later, Marcus was sitting in Olivia's office, a tall, wiry man with a calm, unassuming demeanor. He didn't look like much, which was exactly why he was perfect for the job. Marcus listened carefully as Olivia laid out the details of the task, nodding thoughtfully. "I can do it," he said, his voice steady. "I'll start as a waiter, work my way in, and get you whatever information you need. I've done this kind of thing before. And I'll be careful. I know what's at stake." Olivia nodded, satisfied. "Thank you, Marcus. Let me know if you encounter anything unusual, and keep me updated on everything. This isn't just about information. It's about exposing what they've been trying to hide." Within a week, Marcus had secured a position at the Monarch Garden as a server. His job was straightforward: serve tables, observe, and gather any insights that could help Olivia make her case. He was quiet and unobtrusive, blending in seamlessly. He soon noticed patterns and picked up on whispers about Olivia's incident, which the staff referred to as the mix-up. Most dismissed it as a mistake, but others knew better. One evening, Marcus overheard a conversation that gave him pause. The restaurant manager, Alex McGuire, was discussing the incident with a senior waiter in the back hallway. "We can't afford to make a scene like that again," Alex muttered. "The woman's wealthy, connected. We got lucky she didn't make a bigger deal of it." The senior waiter scoffed. "She's just one person. Besides, you know our policy here. We cater to a certain type of clientele." "Yes, but she's not just anyone," Alex said, his tone apprehensive. "The owner's getting antsy. We've had rumors of discrimination lawsuits in the past, and they don't want any more." Marcus noted every word, sensing an opportunity. If the restaurant had a history of discrimination claims, this was exactly the kind of leverage Olivia could use to push her offer forward. After his shift ended, Marcus called Olivia, sharing what he'd learned. "It seems like the restaurant's been covering up discrimination issues for years," he explained. "They're afraid of bad publicity, and the manager's nervous. If you approach them with an offer, they might be more willing to sell than they let on." Olivia felt a surge of excitement mixed with resolve. This was her chance. "Thank you, Marcus. Keep digging. The more we know, the stronger our position." A few days later, Olivia arranged a formal meeting with the restaurant's owners. She arrived at their office, her head held high, her presence commanding. She knew this was no ordinary negotiation. This was a test of her strength, resilience, and her commitment to her mission. The owners were two older men, Victor Hart and Simon Geller, both of whom had made their fortune in luxury real estate. They greeted Olivia with polite, practiced smiles, and invited her to sit. "Ms. Morrison, we appreciate your interest in the Monarch Garden," Victor began, his tone businesslike. "We're surprised to see someone of your background, if I may, expressing interest in this establishment." Olivia's expression remained composed, though she sensed the veiled condescension. "My background," she replied smoothly, "is that of a successful entrepreneur who believes in inclusion and equality. I think this city could use a restaurant that embraces diversity while offering the same level of excellence the Monarch Garden is known for." Simon cleared his throat, casting a wary glance at Victor. "We understand your perspective, Ms. Morrison, but we cater to a specific clientele who value exclusivity." Olivia nodded, prepared for this argument. "I understand that, but exclusivity doesn't have to mean exclusion based on race or background. And frankly, your financials suggest you could benefit from an expansion of your customer base." Victor's face tightened. "What exactly do you mean by that?" Calmly, Olivia presented the financial analysis her team had prepared. "Your debt is significant, and the margins have been shrinking for the past 3 years. You're not just struggling, you're on the verge of bankruptcy. I'm prepared to make you a fair offer that will not only cover your debts but give you a substantial return. Or you can hold out and risk losing everything." The owners exchanged uneasy glances, sensing the power shift. They knew she was right, but their pride prevented them from conceding too easily. "We'll consider your offer," Victor said finally, though his tone was reluctant. Olivia smiled, her eyes unyielding. "I hope you do, because I assure you, this is an opportunity you won't get again." After she left, Olivia felt a surge of adrenaline. She had just faced two men who had likely never been challenged by someone like her. An unapologetic black woman with power and purpose. She knew the offer would shake them, and now all she had to do was wait for their response. As the days passed, Marcus continued to report from the inside. He uncovered more details, including how management carefully screened patrons, quietly steering away customers who didn't fit their preferred profile. He also discovered the staff had been briefed to handle Olivia's incident as a mix-up, though many knew it was anything but. Meanwhile, Olivia reached out to community leaders, gathering support and discussing the importance of a more inclusive establishment in the city. Word began to spread that she was planning something big, something that would redefine what luxury dining could mean. It wasn't just about taking over a restaurant. It was about transforming a legacy of prejudice into one of unity. A week later, Olivia received the call she'd been waiting for. Victor Hart was on the line, his voice clipped and formal. "Ms. Morrison, we've decided to accept your offer, provided we can finalize the deal quickly." Olivia smiled, knowing she'd won. "I'll have my legal team contact you." "Thank you for your cooperation, Mr. Hart." By the end of the month, Olivia was the official owner of the Monarch Garden. But her work had only just begun. She held a meeting with her core team, including Marcus, Anthony, and her trusted attorney, Janet. "We're going to change this place from the ground up," she said, her voice filled with conviction. "I want everyone who walks through those doors to feel welcome, respected, and valued. No one will ever leave here feeling the way my children and I did." Her team listened, inspired by her vision. They began brainstorming ideas, from new hiring practices that prioritized diversity to community events that showcased local talents and celebrated cultures from around the world. Olivia even planned to rename the restaurant to symbolize a new beginning. The Unity Lounge, a place where luxury met inclusivity. The changes were swift and transformative. Olivia hired new management, retrained the staff, and overhauled the restaurant's ambience. The Unity Lounge opened its doors 2 months later, and it was an immediate success. People from all walks of life flocked to the restaurant, eager to experience its welcoming atmosphere and exquisite cuisine. One evening, as Olivia watched a bustling dining room filled with laughter and warmth, she felt a deep sense of fulfillment. She had not only turned prejudice into opportunity, but had created a sanctuary where everyone felt they belonged. But as the restaurant's popularity grew, she began receiving messages, some supportive and others filled with resentment. Not everyone was ready to embrace change, and Olivia knew the journey was far from over. The Unity Lounge was thriving, but the old ways still had their defenders. One message stood out. A note slipped under her office door late at night. It read simply, "You don't belong here. Neither does your restaurant." Olivia folded the note, her jaw set. She knew the fight for acceptance was ongoing, but she was ready. She had built this new chapter not just for herself, but for everyone who had ever felt unwelcome or unworthy. And no threat, however ominous, would deter her from her mission. The resistance and rising tensions. The transformation of the Unity Lounge was well underway. The restaurant's reputation had shifted from one of exclusion and prejudice to a symbol of community and acceptance. Olivia's vision had begun to take root, and the changes were visible in every aspect of the establishment, from the art on the walls to the diverse clientele that now filled its tables. But not everyone was pleased with the new direction. The backlash came gradually at first, with anonymous complaints and vague messages from disgruntled former patrons. They lamented that the Monarch Garden's standards had been compromised and whispered about how it wasn't the same anymore. Olivia had anticipated resistance, but the hostility took on a darker tone as the restaurant gained popularity. One evening, as Olivia reviewed the day's reports, Anthony entered her office, concern etched on his face. "Olivia, we have a problem." She looked up, putting aside her paperwork. "What's going on?" Anthony held out a stack of printed emails. "These are from a group of our previous patrons. They've been sending complaints, but it's escalated. They're rallying others to boycott the Unity Lounge, claiming you've ruined the restaurant's tradition." Olivia scanned the emails, her jaw tightening. "Let them boycott," she said. "The Unity Lounge wasn't built for those who can't see past their prejudices. We're building a space for everyone." Anthony nodded, admiring her resolve. "Just thought you should know. There's more, though. I've also heard rumors that Victor Hart, one of the previous owners, is stirring up trouble. He's apparently not too pleased with how things turned out." Olivia's expression didn't waver. "If Victor has something to say, he can say it to my face. The Unity Lounge isn't going anywhere." But Victor wasn't content to sit back. Olivia soon learned that he had connections to several influential figures in the city's elite circles, people who weren't exactly fans of the new management. Victor began holding gatherings, reviving old social clubs that thrived on exclusivity, and in these circles, the Unity Lounge became the subject of disdain and gossip. One day, a young woman arrived at the Unity Lounge's host stand, her expression nervous yet determined. She introduced herself as Lena Thomas, a reporter for a local magazine. Olivia was curious and invited her into her office to chat. Once seated, Lena looked down at her notepad, hesitant. "Ms. Morrison, I'm here to discuss the changes you've made at the Unity Lounge. I've heard mixed opinions, and I'd like to hear directly from you about your vision and what inspired these changes." Olivia leaned forward, studying Lena. She sensed the young woman's nervousness and offered her a warm smile. "Lena, I believe everyone deserves a seat at the table. I didn't buy this restaurant just to add to my portfolio. I wanted to turn it into something meaningful, something that stands for acceptance and respect. If that makes certain people uncomfortable, I think that's a sign we're on the right path." Lena's face softened. "I admire what you're doing, Ms. Morrison. But there's another side to this story. Victor Hart has been quite vocal about what he calls the deterioration of tradition. He claims that you've disrespected the legacy of the Monarch Garden." Olivia shook her head, amused. "The only tradition we disrupted was one built on exclusion. This restaurant wasn't about fine dining. It was about elitism. If Mr. Hart has a problem with us creating an inclusive space, that says more about him than it does about us." Lena nodded, scribbling down notes. "Thank you, Ms. Morrison. This perspective is important, and it needs to be heard. I'll be sure to include it in my piece." The article was published a week later, sparking a firestorm of opinions. The piece praised Olivia's mission, but also detailed Victor's dissatisfaction, framing the conflict as a clash of ideals. The public response was intense. Messages flooded the Unity Lounge's social media pages, some supportive and others vitriolic. While many applauded Olivia's efforts, a vocal minority criticized her, calling her changes disrespectful to tradition and accusing her of ruining a legacy. Amidst this storm, Olivia's children noticed the growing tension. One afternoon, as Olivia picked up Zachary and Tiana from school, Zachary asked, "Mom, are people mad at you?" Olivia glanced at him in the rearview mirror, her heart aching at the worry on his face. "Some people don't like change, Zach. They're used to things being the certain way. And when that changes, they can feel uncomfortable. But what you're doing is good, right?" Tiana chimed in, her innocent eyes wide with confusion. "Yes, honey," Olivia said, smiling despite herself. "Sometimes, doing what's right means standing up to people who don't agree. And that's okay." Zachary nodded, looking reassured. "Then don't let them stop you, Mom." Olivia chuckled, reaching back to squeeze his hand. "I won't, sweetheart." But things only escalated from there. The following week, Olivia arrived at the Unity Lounge to find spray-painted slurs on the front of the building. Her staff stood nearby, their faces a mixture of anger and sadness. Olivia's heart pounded with fury, but she took a deep breath, calming herself. She approached her team, putting a comforting hand on the shoulder of a young server who looked particularly shaken. "Listen, everyone," she said, her voice steady but firm. "This is just a reminder of why we're here. People who want to scare us don't realize that we're stronger than they'll ever know. Let's clean this up and show them that nothing they do can stop us." The staff responded with renewed determination. They cleaned off the hateful graffiti, replacing it with a beautiful mural painted by a local artist, a vibrant piece depicting people of all backgrounds coming together over a shared meal. The mural became a symbol of resilience, and soon people from the community began visiting just to see it. Meanwhile, Marcus, still working undercover, noticed the change in atmosphere among the staff. Some were loyal to the new vision, while others, employees from the previous ownership, were visibly resentful. Marcus kept an eye on them, suspecting that someone from within was feeding information to Victor and his supporters. One night, while closing up, Marcus overheard a conversation between two staff members who had been there since the Monarch Garden days. "This place isn't what it used to be," one muttered. "I can't believe they hired someone like Marcus. He doesn't belong here, just like this new owner." Marcus clenched his fists, his jaw tight. He'd faced prejudice before, but hearing it in this place, now meant to be inclusive, felt like a betrayal. He approached Olivia the next day, sharing what he'd overheard. Olivia sighed, exhaustion showing on her face. "It's disappointing, Marcus, but this is exactly why we're doing what we're doing. We're showing them that change is here, and it's not going away." Despite the obstacles, Olivia pressed forward. She hosted community events, partnered with local schools for internships, and provided opportunities to young people from underrepresented communities. Slowly, the Unity Lounge began to gain respect and admiration, even from some who had initially resisted the change. Then, one evening, Olivia received an unexpected visitor. Victor Hart walked into the Unity Lounge, his expression a mixture of disdain and curiosity. Olivia watched him from across the dining room, her posture calm and unbothered. When he noticed her gaze, he walked over, offering a thin smile. "Olivia Morrison," he greeted, his tone polite but icy. "Quite the establishment you've built here." Olivia inclined her head. "Thank you, Mr. Hart. It's nice to see you here." Victor's lips twisted in a smirk. "I came to see for myself what you've done with the place. It's different. It's inclusive," Olivia corrected, holding his gaze. "Everyone is welcome here. Isn't that worth celebrating?" Victor raised an eyebrow, unamused. "Perhaps. But tradition is important, Olivia. This city was built on certain standards, and the Monarch Garden represented that. Now, I hardly recognize it." "That's exactly the point," Olivia replied, her voice unwavering. "We're building something new, something better. Tradition that thrives on exclusion isn't worth preserving." Victor looked around, his eyes hardening as he took in the diverse clientele filling the tables. "We'll see how long this lasts. People have short memories, Ms. Morrison. Trends come and go." Olivia leaned in, her voice low but firm. "This isn't a trend. It's a movement, and it's here to stay." Victor left shortly after, but Olivia knew this wasn't the end. His pride had been wounded, and she could sense that he wasn't ready to let things go. She expected more challenges, but she was ready. The Unity Lounge was more than just a restaurant now. It was a symbol, a beacon for change. That night, as Olivia closed up, she felt a sense of peace settle over her. She looked at the mural on the wall, its colors vibrant and bold. The fight wasn't over, but she was no longer afraid. She had built something lasting, something her children and the community could look up to. And no amount of resistance, no matter how fierce, could take that away. Rallying the community and uncovering the betrayal. The Unity Lounge had become a beacon of resilience, and Olivia's vision was now a reality, blossoming amidst adversity. But as its success grew, so did the resistance from those determined to see her fail. Victor Hart was persistent, working behind the scenes to erode her progress. And Olivia knew she needed more than just her determination to withstand the storm. She needed her community's support. Determined to strengthen the foundation of the Unity Lounge, Olivia launched a series of community events. She reached out to local artists, musicians, and chefs, inviting them to showcase their talents at the restaurant. It was a celebration of diversity, unity, and the beauty of inclusion. Each event brought in a wave of new patrons, people eager to experience a place where everyone felt welcome. One Friday night, the Unity Lounge was hosting a cultural evening featuring artists from different backgrounds. The restaurant buzzed with laughter, music, and lively conversations. Guests from all walks of life filled the tables, sharing dishes and stories. Olivia walked through the dining area, greeting guests and soaking in the atmosphere she had fought so hard to create. At one table, she noticed a group of young activists she'd met through a local charity. They waved her over, grinning. "Ms. Morrison," one of them, Maya, exclaimed. "This place is amazing. We've been telling everyone to come here. It's become our favorite spot." Olivia smiled warmly, touched by their enthusiasm. "Thank you, Maya. That means the world to me. We're building this place for people like you, people who believe in change." Maya nodded, her eyes shining. "You've inspired so many of us. It's not just a restaurant, Ms. Morrison. It's a statement. We're with you." As Olivia returned to the kitchen to check on the preparations, her heart swelled with gratitude. She could feel the community rallying around her, turning the Unity Lounge into a movement that resonated far beyond its walls. But amidst the joy and unity, not everyone was loyal to the cause. Marcus, who had become Olivia's trusted advisor, had been quietly observing some of the staff, particularly those who had been with the Monarch Garden before her acquisition. One man in particular, Aaron Wells, had caught his attention. Aaron was a longtime server who often made offhand remarks about the good old days and seemed resistant to the new vision. One evening, as Marcus was leaving the restaurant, he noticed Aaron speaking with a group of men in the parking lot. Marcus recognized one of them immediately, Victor Hart. He watched from a distance, careful not to be seen, as Aaron nodded at something Victor said, then handed him a small notebook. The exchange was brief, but Marcus knew something was off. He waited until Victor left, then approached Aaron nonchalantly. "Hey, Aaron." "Late night." Aaron stiffened, caught off guard. "Oh, yeah, just finishing up. You know how it is." Marcus nodded, keeping his tone light. "Definitely. See you tomorrow." But his suspicions were confirmed. Someone on the inside was feeding information to Victor, and it was time to let Olivia know. The next morning, Marcus met with Olivia in her office, his face grave as he recounted what he'd seen. "Aaron's been leaking information to Victor," Marcus said, his voice steady. "I don't know exactly what he's been sharing, but it's clear Victor's been using him as a spy." Olivia's heart sank. She had suspected resistance among the old staff, but hoped they would come to see the value in her vision. "Thank you, Marcus. I'll deal with Aaron. But we need to be cautious. If Victor has someone inside, he may know more about our plans than we realize." The betrayal weighed on Olivia. She had worked tirelessly to create an inclusive environment, and it hurt to think that someone within her own team would jeopardize everything. But she knew she couldn't let this derail her. She would handle Aaron discreetly and make it clear that the Unity Lounge wouldn't tolerate disloyalty. Later that evening, Olivia called Aaron into her office. He entered, his expression uneasy, sensing that something was wrong. She looked at him, her face calm but resolute. "Aaron," she began, "I understand you've been with this restaurant for years. I respect your loyalty to its history, but I also need to know that everyone on this team is committed to our new vision." Aaron shifted uncomfortably, his eyes darting away. "Of course, Ms. Morrison. I'm committed. Are you?" Olivia asked, her gaze unwavering. Because I have reason to believe you've been sharing information with Victor Hart. Aaron's face paled, and he stammered. I was just trying to help. I thought. He said he just wanted to know how things were going. That he was concerned. Concerned about what? Olivia asked, her tone icy. Concerned that we're making this place welcoming to everyone. Aaron's shoulders slumped, and he sighed, as if some inner conflict had finally worn him down. Look, Ms. Morrison, the Monarch Garden had a reputation, a clientele. It was special. Victor promised it would stay that way. And then you came along and changed everything. I thought it wasn't right. Olivia took a deep breath, steadying herself. Aaron, I understand that change can be difficult, especially when it challenges old values. But the values we're building here are about acceptance and respect. If you can't support that, then maybe the Unity Lounge isn't the right place for you. Aaron lowered his head, defeated. I understand. I'll leave. After he left, Olivia felt a strange mixture of sadness and relief. She didn't take pleasure in letting him go, but she knew it was necessary. Loyalty to the past couldn't stand in the way of the future she was building. With Aaron gone, she tightened her hiring practices, ensuring that every new team member understood and embraced the restaurant's values. Meanwhile, news of the Unity Lounge's impact began to spread. Articles appeared in local magazines, praising Olivia's mission and the restaurant's welcoming atmosphere. A group of young artists even organized a community mural painting event, transforming one of the restaurant's walls into a vibrant masterpiece depicting the city's diverse cultures coming together. One afternoon, as Olivia was reviewing the latest customer feedback, she received an unexpected call. It was from Clara Whitmore, a prominent businesswoman and head of a local cultural foundation. Clara had a reputation for supporting progressive initiatives, and her voice on the other end of the line was filled with warmth. Ms. Morrison, she said, I wanted to personally commend you on what you've done with the Unity Lounge. I know it hasn't been easy, but you've created something truly remarkable. I'd like to offer my foundation's support. We're organizing a citywide event celebrating diversity and inclusion, and I think the Unity Lounge would be the perfect place to host the opening night. Olivia felt a swell of gratitude. Clara's support was a significant endorsement, one that would bring even more visibility to her mission. Thank you, Ms. Whitmore. We'd be honored to host the event. This is exactly the kind of partnership we've been hoping for. With Clara's backing, the Unity Lounge became a focal point of the city's diversity celebration. The opening night was a grand affair, attended by leaders from various communities, local artists, activists, and city officials. The event highlighted the beauty of different cultures, with performances, speeches, and a menu curated to showcase flavors from around the world. That night, as Olivia stood by the mural outside, watching guests mingling and laughing, she felt a deep sense of fulfillment. Her journey had been challenging, filled with resistance and betrayal, but this moment made it all worthwhile. The Unity Lounge had become more than just a restaurant. It was a gathering place, a symbol of resilience, and a testament to the power of unity. But as she watched the celebration unfold, Olivia knew the battle wasn't over. She could feel Victor's shadow lingering in the background, and she sensed that he wasn't finished with his attempts to undermine her success. For now, though, she allowed herself to bask in the joy of the moment, surrounded by people who believed in her vision. That night, as Olivia finally closed the doors after the event, she found a small note slipped under the front door. Her heart skipped a beat as she read the message, scrawled in familiar, neat handwriting. This isn't over. Tradition runs deeper than you know. Olivia crumpled the note, her eyes narrowing. Victor's threats no longer scared her. She had built something powerful, something rooted in acceptance and resilience. And no matter what he tried, the Unity Lounge, and the values it stood for, would endure. With renewed determination, Olivia locked the doors, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. A threatening legacy and an unbreakable stand. The Unity Lounge had cemented itself as a beacon of change, but the victory was far from secure. Victor Hart, fuming over the transformation of his former restaurant, had made it his mission to tarnish Olivia's progress. He rallied powerful friends, casting doubt on the Unity Lounge's appropriateness and accusing it of abandoning its values and standards. He portrayed Olivia's changes as a threat to the city's identity in an underhanded campaign to discredit her. Olivia's phone rang one morning, pulling her from her thoughts. It was Maya, the young activist who had frequented the Unity Lounge with her friends. "Ms. Morrison, I thought you should know," Maya began, her voice tense. "Victor and some of his supporters have been speaking out at city council meetings. They're claiming the Unity Lounge is lowering the area's standards. It's all ridiculous, but it's riling people up." Olivia's grip on her phone tightened. "Thank you, Maya. I'll make sure we're prepared." The next morning, Olivia attended a city council meeting where Victor and his allies were making their case. Victor took the floor, his tone self-righteous as he spoke about preserving the city's heritage and protecting the community from misguided changes. Olivia felt her stomach churn at his words. She knew he wasn't interested in preserving anything but his own image and influence. When it was her turn to speak, Olivia stood tall, her voice steady and clear. "What we've built at the Unity Lounge isn't a threat to this city. It's a celebration of it. We're bringing people together, supporting local artists and entrepreneurs, and creating opportunities for people of all backgrounds. That's what community should be about: growth, inclusivity, and mutual respect." Her words struck a chord with many in the room, but Victor's supporters sneered, whispering among themselves. Olivia left the meeting with mixed emotions. She had spoken her truth, but she knew Victor's campaign wouldn't stop here. In the days that followed, Olivia's phone was flooded with calls from concerned patrons, allies, and supporters. Some told her about posts circulating online, others about disparaging comments overheard at gatherings. Victor's smear campaign was gaining traction among those who preferred the old ways. That evening, Olivia held an emergency meeting with her team at the Unity Lounge. Marcus, Anthony, and Clara Whitmore were there, along with other key staff members. Their faces were filled with a mix of frustration and determination. "We got to do something," Marcus said, breaking the silence. "Victor's twisting the narrative, making it sound like we're the ones damaging the community." Clara nodded, her face grave. "If we stay silent, his message might start to stick. We need a response, something powerful that shows the community who we really are and what we're fighting for." Olivia looked around at her team, a spark of determination lighting up her eyes. "We'll host an event," she declared. "A community day. We'll invite local artists, food vendors, performers, everyone. It'll be a celebration of unity and diversity, and we'll make it clear that the Unity Lounge belongs to everyone." The team agreed, their spirits lifted by her vision. They threw themselves into the planning, spreading word through social media, community centers, and local businesses. Flyers and posters went up around town, and excitement began to build. People who had never set foot in the Unity Lounge were curious, drawn by the promise of a gathering that celebrated the community's rich tapestry. The day of the event arrived, and the Unity Lounge was transformed. The interior gleamed, adorned with vibrant artwork from local artists. Outside, tables lined the sidewalk, laden with dishes from diverse cuisines. Musicians played a lively mix of jazz, folk, and world music, drawing a crowd that spilled onto the street. Families, artists, activists, and people from all walks of life gathered. The air buzzed with warmth and laughter as people mingled, enjoying the performances and sampling the food. Olivia moved through the crowd, greeting guests and soaking in the joy around her. Her heart swelled as she saw her vision come to life, a place where everyone belonged, free from judgment and exclusion. Toward the evening, Maya took the stage, and her voice carried over the crowd, steady and proud. "The Unity Lounge stands for each of us, for our families, our friends, our dreams. It's a reminder that we don't have to choose between heritage and progress. We can build a community that honors both." As Maya finished, the crowd erupted in applause, people cheering and whistling. Olivia felt tears prick at her eyes. It was the validation she'd hoped for, a resounding message of solidarity and support. But even as the evening reached its peak, an unsettling presence lingered at the edge of the crowd. Olivia spotted Victor, standing in the shadows, watching the celebration with a look of disdain. His face was tense, his mouth twisted in a sneer, and his eyes burned with barely contained fury. She knew he'd come to witness her success, or perhaps to see if he could find a way to undermine it. Ignoring him, Olivia returned her attention to her guests. She would not let his bitterness ruin what was clearly a success. But as the event wrapped up, Marcus approached her, his face serious. "Olivia," he said, lowering his voice, "I just overheard Victor talking to a couple of men. He's planning something more drastic. He mentioned getting someone on the city council to bring up a zoning review. He's trying to label the Unity Lounge as a nuisance business that disrupts the neighborhood." Olivia's heart sank. If Victor succeeded, it could mean restrictions on her business. Hours limitations, noise ordinances, or even forced closure. He was pulling out every stop, willing to weaponize bureaucracy against her. She took a deep breath, steeling herself. "If he wants a fight, he'll get one," she replied. "We'll prepare. I'm not backing down." Over the next few weeks, Olivia and her team consulted lawyers, filed paperwork, and gathered support from community members. They reached out to the press, sharing stories of how the Unity Lounge had positively impacted lives and fostered inclusivity. Local influencers and activists rallied behind Olivia, using social media to spread awareness and counter Victor's narrative. But Victor was relentless. He lobbied the city council, leveraging his influence with well-connected friends. Olivia soon learned that a vote had been scheduled to determine if the Unity Lounge's zoning could be challenged. The implications were enormous. If the council voted against her, it would set a dangerous precedent, giving power to those who wanted to exclude rather than include. The night before the council meeting, Olivia sat alone in the Unity Lounge, the quiet ambience a stark contrast to the tumult in her mind. She thought about her children, her community, and the legacy she was building. This was no longer just about her dream. It was about standing against forces that had oppressed and excluded for too long. She would fight, not just for herself, but for everyone who had ever been told they didn't belong. The following morning, she dressed in her sharpest suit and arrived at City Hall, greeted by a crowd of supporters who had gathered to show their solidarity. Maya was there, along with Marcus, Anthony, Clara, and countless patrons who had come to love the Unity Lounge. As she made her way into the council chambers, they cheered her on, their voices filling her with courage. Inside, the meeting began, and Victor was given the floor first. He presented his case with polished smugness, speaking about community standards and protecting the neighborhood's reputation. He made the Unity Lounge sound like a blight on the city, twisting facts to serve his agenda. When it was Olivia's turn, she rose, her voice calm but unyielding. "The Unity Lounge isn't a threat to this community. It's an asset. We're creating opportunities, supporting local artists, and bringing people together. This isn't about noise or nuisance. It's about someone who refuses to see that inclusivity and diversity make us stronger, not weaker." Her words resonated, and she saw nods from some council members. But as they prepared to vote, her heart pounded, the stakes higher than ever. The votes were cast, each council member's decision revealed one by one. Olivia held her breath, listening as the count tipped back and forth. In the end, the result was close, closer than she'd hoped, but they ruled in her favor. The council announced that the Unity Lounge would not be restricted, and her supporters erupted into cheers. Tears filled Olivia's eyes as she looked out at the crowd, overwhelmed with gratitude. She had won, not just for herself, but for everyone who believed in her vision. As she left the chambers, Victor was waiting, his face pale and eyes blazing with fury. He stepped forward, his voice a harsh whisper. "This isn't over, Olivia." She met his gaze, her own expression calm, unbothered. "It is for you, Victor, because no matter what you do, this city is changing. And it's not changing back." She walked away, leaving him behind, her head held high. The battle had been long and grueling, but she had proven that resilience and unity were stronger than hate and exclusion. The Unity Lounge continued to thrive, its legacy now woven into the fabric of the community. And Olivia knew that, no matter what challenges lay ahead, they would face them together. She had built something lasting, something that could withstand any storm. And as she looked at her children, her team, and her community, she felt an unbreakable sense of pride. In the end, the Unity Lounge wasn't just a restaurant. It was a testament to the strength of those who dared to stand up and fight for what they believed in. And for Olivia, it was only the beginning. The legacy cemented, and a new beginning. Months had passed since the pivotal city council meeting, and the Unity Lounge had not only survived Victor Hart's smear campaign, but thrived in the face of adversity. With the community's support firmly behind her, Olivia had transformed her restaurant into an icon of resilience and inclusivity. The Unity Lounge was no longer just a place to dine. It was a symbol of hope, a testament to what could be achieved when a community stood together. But despite her hard-won victory, Olivia knew there was more work to be done. Her journey had awakened something deeper in her, a calling to expand her mission beyond the walls of her restaurant. She wanted to reach more people, create more spaces of belonging, and ensure that her vision for inclusion wasn't just limited to one corner of the city. As Olivia was contemplating her next steps one evening, she received a call from Clara Whitmore. Clara was thrilled about the latest development. Olivia's story had caught the attention of the state's Department of Cultural Affairs. They wanted to partner with her on a new initiative to bring inclusive spaces to underserved neighborhoods across the state. "Olivia, they want you to lead it," Clara said, her voice filled with pride. "They see the Unity Lounge as a model of what's possible. They're offering funding, resources, and their full support." Olivia was stunned, the weight of the offer sinking in. She had dreamed of expanding her mission, but this was beyond what she'd imagined. "Clara, this is incredible. I don't know what to say." "Say you'll do it, Olivia," Clara replied, laughing. "You've already built something extraordinary here. Now it's time to take it further." That night, as Olivia sat at her kitchen table, she thought about the journey that had brought her here. She remembered the sting of rejection on her first visit to the Monarch Garden, the looks of disdain from patrons and staff, the pain in her children's eyes as they asked why they'd been turned away. She remembered the graffiti, the notes, and Victor's relentless attacks. And then she thought about the victory, the community's support, and the people who now saw the Unity Lounge as a second home. This new opportunity was more than just a career move. It was a responsibility, a chance to build a legacy of inclusion and acceptance for future generations. She was ready to take it on. The next morning, Olivia shared the news with her team. They were ecstatic, immediately bursting into ideas and suggestions for what this initiative could mean for the community and beyond. But as they celebrated, Olivia noticed that Marcus looked particularly thoughtful. "Marcus, what's on your mind?" Olivia asked, smiling. He glanced around, a bit shy. "I was just thinking, if we're expanding, why not start with a community center attached to the Unity Lounge? Somewhere people can come to learn, share stories, and connect. We could offer workshops, host speakers, maybe even start a mentoring program." The idea struck Olivia like lightning. A community center would make the Unity Lounge even more than a restaurant. It would be a hub, a place where people could come not only to eat but to grow and find support. It would solidify her vision and give people in the community more reasons to come together. "That's brilliant, Marcus," she said, her excitement building. "Let's do it. Let's create a space that's more than just about dining. It's about belonging." With renewed purpose, Olivia and her team got to work. They met with architects, planners, and local leaders to design a center that would truly serve the community. The space would include a library stocked with books from diverse authors, a tech center where young people could learn new skills, classrooms for workshops, and a stage for performances and speakers. They called it the Unity Center, a name that resonated with the spirit of togetherness that Olivia had always envisioned. But Victor Hart was not done with his efforts to disrupt her progress. As news of the Unity Center spread, he launched yet another campaign, this time accusing Olivia of using her influence to impose on the community and turn it into her personal platform. His rhetoric was sharper, his attacks more personal, and he doubled down on his narrative, accusing her of disrespecting the city's true heritage. Victor's influence remained strong in certain circles, and soon his words began to circulate, casting doubt on Olivia's intentions. The night before the Unity Center's opening, Olivia found herself alone in her office, wondering if Victor's relentless opposition would ever end. As she sat in silence, she heard a knock at the door. To her surprise, it was Clara, accompanied by several young artists and community leaders, including Maya and Marcus. They had gathered to show their support, bringing her flowers and notes of gratitude. "Olivia, we're here because of you," Clara said, her voice steady and filled with warmth. "Don't let anyone tell you that you don't belong. You're a part of this community, and we need you." Maya stepped forward, holding a small painting she had created, a stunning, colorful depiction of the Unity Lounge with people of all backgrounds gathered around a long table, laughing and sharing a meal. "We made this for you," she said, handing Olivia the painting. "It's a reminder that what you're building belongs to all of us." Olivia looked at the faces around her, feeling a wave of gratitude. She realized that Victor's words, however venomous, were hollow. The people who mattered, those who shared her values, those who believed in the power of community, stood with her. She had nothing to fear. The following day dawned bright and clear, and the Unity Center's grand opening was a celebration that exceeded Olivia's wildest dreams. Hundreds of people gathered, eager to see the new space and what it offered. Olivia, dressed in a simple but elegant outfit, greeted guests and gave tours, explaining the vision behind each room, each mural, each corner of the center. The day was filled with performances, from children's dance troupes to spoken-word artists, all celebrating the beauty of diversity and the strength of unity. In the tech center, young people tinkered with computers, eager to learn new skills. In the library, children curled up with books, laughing and whispering as they explored stories from around the world. As the sun began to set, the celebration culminated in a speech by Olivia. Standing before the crowd, she felt a surge of pride and gratitude. "Today is about more than just opening a new building," she began, her voice steady, but filled with emotion. "It's about creating a legacy of belonging, about standing together and saying that no one gets to decide who belongs and who doesn't. We are all here and together. We are stronger. The Unity Center is for all of us, a place where everyone is welcome, where everyone has a seat at the table." The crowd erupted into applause, cheering her name. In that moment, Olivia felt an overwhelming sense of accomplishment. She had not only transformed the Unity Lounge, but had built something that would stand for generations to come. But as the applause died down, she spotted a familiar figure at the back of the crowd, Victor Hart, his face a mix of disdain and something else, defeat. He met her gaze for a moment, his expression bitter, but then turned and walked away, disappearing into the shadows. It was over. Victor had tried every trick in his book to bring her down, but she had won. And now, there was nothing he could do to stop the legacy she had built. As the evening wound down, Olivia sat on a bench outside the Unity Center, watching as people laughed and mingled, reluctant to leave the space they already felt was theirs. Zachary and Tiana ran up to her, their faces bright with excitement. "Mom, did you see? I showed Tiana the library. It's so cool," Zachary exclaimed, his eyes sparkling. Tiana nodded, clinging to Olivia's hand. "Can we come here every day, Mom?" Olivia smiled, pulling her children close. "This is for you," she said softly. "This whole place is for you and everyone like you. A place where you're safe, where you're loved, and where you're never, ever turned away." As she held her children, she felt a deep sense of peace. She had not only built a restaurant or a community center, she had built a legacy of resilience, love, and unity. And no amount of prejudice or opposition could ever take that away. The Unity Lounge and the Unity Center had become symbols of a new era, an era where everyone belonged and everyone was valued. And as Olivia looked around at the people who filled this space, she knew that the seed she had planted would grow into something even greater, something that would shape the future. She had faced adversity, betrayal, and relentless opposition, but she had emerged stronger, her spirit unbroken. Olivia Morrison had built more than a business. She had built a community, a family. And she knew that, no matter what challenges lay ahead, they would face them together. In the end, the Unity Lounge was more than a restaurant, and the Unity Center was more than a building. They were symbols of hope, resilience, and the unbreakable power of unity. And as Olivia stood there, surrounded by the people who believed in her, she knew her journey was far from over. It was only just beginning.